Hey guys, I'm back, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a movie review on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So this is the 8th and apparently final installment in the Mission Impossible franchise. It was released in 2025. It stars Tom Cruise, Hayley Atwell, and Esai Morales. In this movie, Ethan Hunt and the IMF team race against time to find the entity, a rogue artificial intelligence that can destroy mankind. So this is obviously an unbelievably late review. This movie has been out for over a month, but the thing is, you know, I still wanted to make a full movie review on this because this was my most anticipated movie of the year, and there is currently no video up on YouTube of me giving my thoughts on it, and I want there to be one. So yeah, we're doing this review now. I was so unbelievably excited for this movie. I love this series. Action is my favorite genre, and this is one of the best action franchises. It's one of the most consistently good franchises. Tom Cruise committing to practical action filmmaking and doing insane things to entertain the audience. Yeah, great stuff. I'm a huge fan of Dead Reckoning. I was really looking forward to seeing how they would conclude this series, as it is obviously called The Final Reckoning. So yeah, I was unbelievably excited for this. Without further ado, let's begin with this review and let's start talking about the positives. So this is obviously a Mission Impossible movie. You go to these movies for the action and for the insane Tom Cruise stuff. And the two, obviously, because everyone has said everything that needs to be said about this movie because it's been out for so long, but the two big action set pieces in this movie that everyone's talked about, and you know, the two big action set pieces in this movie, the submarine sequence and the biplane sequence, those two sequences are incredibly solid. The submarine scene is really tense and, like I said, incredibly solid. Not up there with one of the best scenes in the franchise or anything in my opinion, but still a really solid sequence. But the biplane sequence is probably up there as one of the best scenes in the franchise. I mean, just an incredibly edge-of-your-seat, heart-pounding sequence. Really insane that Tom Cruise was genuinely hanging off these planes. There were a couple small moments in that sequence where it's very obvious he was attached to safety cables because he kind of seems to defy the laws of gravity a little bit. It's not a major issue at all. It's, like I said, one or two small moments, and I feel like most people watching either won't notice it, or if they do notice it, just won't care. It's not a major issue at all, just a couple small moments where it is a bit obvious he's attached to safety cables, but it's just a really incredible sequence. Absolutely a fitting thing for this franchise to do in the finale, in the movie that's the finale to the franchise. Yeah, an absolute achievement of a sequence. So yeah, this movie does definitely have very solid action. Tom Cruise is obviously so committed to not just practical action filmmaking, but also the character of Ethan Hunt. He's just so committed to this franchise in general, and yeah, it's super entertaining to watch him do his thing one final time with this franchise. He gives a good performance. The rest of the cast is also pretty solid. It is interesting because Ethan Hunt, I think, is genuinely a good character in this franchise, because I feel like a lot of times the discussion surrounding the Mission Impossible franchise is like, you go to these movies for the stunts, you don't care about the characters. That's really not the case at all. I mean, I'm not saying that a load of people say you don't care about the characters in these movies, but I am really glad that these films do have good characters, and the protagonist Ethan Hunt is you know, he does. I don't know if he has like a real character arc throughout all of these movies, but I do think he does have some nice development in this franchise. So yeah, again, he is a good character, and like I said, it's fun to watch Tom Cruise do his thing one last time with this series. Another positive here is that as the kind of finale to this series, there is some nice emotion to this. It has quite a lot of sentimentality, and I mean that in the best way possible. It is quite a sentimental film for quite a bit of it, so that is nice to see. And one final thing I'll mention in the positives is I think the movie, it's shot well and it's quite solid from a cinematography standpoint. I think it looks quite solid. The film quite likes Dutch angles, which obviously we've seen before in the series, so that is quite interesting. But yeah, overall solid from a cinematography standpoint. From there, let's move on to the negatives. First thing I'm going to say here is, in my opinion, this is the first and, I guess only film in the series, because it is the final one. This is the only film in the series where it felt like a script built around stunts, and not a good script either. It's creating a good script should come first, and then the script will like naturally lead into the action set pieces, you know what I mean? But this whole movie just gives off the vibe of a film that needed more work put into it so that what it was going for could be perfected, if you know what I mean. like, this film is a 2-hour 49-minute conclusion to the Mission Impossible franchise. I mean, it's even longer than Dead Reckoning, which was already like 2 hours 44 minutes, 43 minutes, however long that film was. And this film, obviously, they're trying to outdo even that, and it just feels like they couldn't really do it. I don't know if it's like this was kind of a bit more rushed after Dead Reckoning, but it does generally feel like they had these ideas for obviously these 2 huge action set pieces, and then they were kind of like, let's just build the rest of the film around those. There's obviously been a ton of discussion about how exposition heavy and flashback heavy quite a bit of this movie is, especially in the first third, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about here. It's just like everything after the 2 huge action set pieces, which are the highlights of this movie, just kind of feels like an afterthought, especially with the character of Gabriel, who was obviously like the major villain alongside the Entity in Dead Reckoning, and here he really like does feel like an afterthought, because he's just kind of there, and obviously the main focus is on the Entity, and it's really disappointing how they continued his character from Dead Reckoning, because I didn't even think he was all that great in Dead Reckoning, but I really feel like they could have done a lot more with him here, and they just unfortunately didn't. But yeah, like I said, this whole movie just gives off the vibe of something where it's like they didn't, like, I hate to say it, but it just kind of felt like they didn't put much effort into everything else apart from the like everything else that wasn't the huge spectacle stuff. It's just my opinion though. But yeah, it did really feel that way to me. And like another thing here that just feels like a bit of an afterthought is the fact that this is the finale, because like I said, there is some nice emotion and sentimentality to this, but there are obviously all these flashbacks to the previous movies to try and tie everything together, and as a whole it just feels quite ham-fisted. Obviously a lot of people have talked about this, but this does very much feel like a film that's catering towards the people who haven't seen the previous Mission Impossible films, and while that is respectable, it does also just make for a bit of an awkward viewing experience for people like me who have seen all the movies, because it's just like there's so much time spent on the exposition and flashbacks and explaining stuff that's happened before in the series, explaining the stuff that's happening now, all of that stuff. There's so much time spent on that, and that just makes for a not very enjoyable film for when that is happening. So yeah, I really wish that wasn't the case with this film, but unfortunately it is. And also, even with like the villain, the Entity, and the stakes, the fact that the whole world's gonna end if Ethan Hunt doesn't save the day, all that stuff again just feels a bit ham-fisted, because they just tell you it happens, like they tell you that's the case, and you learn that that's the case, but you just don't really feel any of it. Like, it really doesn't feel like there's much weight to what is actually going on. At least that's just kind of how I felt about it. Another thing here is that, in my opinion, this film just kind of feels like it's missing the tone which worked so well in the previous Mission Impossible movies, because obviously from Ghost Protocol onwards, these films really kind of found themselves. Like, they knew what they were, they knew what they were doing, and they had this tone which worked so well, this super fun tone which just made each movie so enjoyable. And the thing is, this movie doesn't have that as much, and you know, it is quite fun in quite a few places, but it's just, I don't know if they couldn't extend it to 2 hours 49 minutes, or it might have something to do with the fact there's so much time spent on the exposition and flashbacks. But this doesn't feel like it has that same tone. It doesn't feel like they did it as well as the previous movies, and it results in a film that feels frustratingly disconnected from the rest of the series, and that is obviously not what you want for a franchise finale. They've gone for a bit more of a somber tone here, which is fair enough because it is the conclusion, but you do also want that key sense of fun that works so well in these movies, and that really felt like it was missing here in my opinion. So what I've said about this movie from the beginning is that if this movie is good, it is a win, because Mission Impossible is obviously one of the most consistent franchises, and it's had so many movies that have been great. Like most of its movies have been great. I mean, I think, you know, the 8 movies, 4 of them have been great. From Ghost Protocol onwards, they were all great in my opinion. So if this movie was good, it would still remain one of the most consistent franchises. Like, it doesn't have to be a great movie just because the most recent ones were. And, you know, if it's not great, that's okay. It just needs to be good. And I thought this movie was good. I liked it. I thought it was a good but underwhelming finale to the series, because it felt like they just had this idea for, let's do an almost 3-hour conclusion to the Mission Impossible franchise, even longer than Dead Reckoning. Let's tie everything together, all the previous movies together. Let's have these 2 huge action set pieces that will be the highlights of the movie. Let's do all of it, and it just feels like they couldn't quite do all of it. It makes these really, I think, not good choices with its story. It did feel like a script built around the stunts, unfortunately, in my opinion. And I really was let down by quite a bit of this. And the thing that's disappointing about this is not the fact that it isn't a great movie. It's just the fact that it's not that good, in my opinion. Because as a movie, it really needed some more work on it, in my opinion, and there are a lot of issues with it, in my opinion. But overall, I still liked it. I still had a good enough time with it. The 2 highlight action set pieces are really, really solid. The biplane sequence is going to be one of the sequences of the year, one of the best scenes of the year, 100%. And it's super fun to watch Tom Cruise do his thing one final time with this series. So I'm going to give Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 a 6.5 out of 10. Yes, I called it Dead Reckoning Part 2. So thank you very much for watching this review. If you did enjoy, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you want to. If you have seen this movie, feel free to let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.